and welcome to the show. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. Hey, everybody. It is the weekend before Halloween, and, I don't have too many things to say before we dive into calls, but obviously I'm hosting by myself. V is recuperating from surgery. If you want to know more about what they've been up to, you can follow them on Twitter at Author of Confusion or at Author Confusion. And kind of see what they've been up to. But I know that it's not just me. We're all wishing them a speedy recovery, and we want the best for them. So I love you, V, if you're watching, and I'll be excited when you come back. But for now, we've got some really good callers on the line. I really want to talk about it, but I do kind of want to set the stage for today. So here's the deal. We have gotten a lot of comments about the whole witchcraft thing, about accepting holidays or celebrating holidays and what that means, what that props up. I personally think that you can be a secular person, a non-believer. You can celebrate a holiday and not necessarily be propping up any superstition or supernatural beliefs. I don't think you need to believe in the supernatural to get benefit out of things like holidays, or for a lot of people, it's all about the what's the word? Oh, I'm losing it. Give me just a second. Ritual. There we go. A lot of people leave their religion and they get really, really, skeezed out about ritual. I know I did. Anytime I would see it, I would get really freaked out. And then it got pointed out to me that I have a coffee ritual in the morning. At the time when I was smoking, I would have my cigarette, my coffee in the morning, and I was not awake until I had that. Ritual is more than just religious. And so when you find rituals that are important to you or that you find meaning in, it's also not something that is supernatural. And yet, I can't help but see how many people still conflate supernatural beliefs with things like ritual. And so when Halloween comes around, I feel like it's particularly interesting to see, because as a believer, when I was a believer, I was told that celebrating Halloween was a pagan holiday, that I was somehow communing with bad things, dark spirits, demons, all of that stuff, to be wary. And you see, different whack jobs, who's the guy that I had that conversation with? I'm losing it. I'll see it in the chat. But who continue to say that, secret satanic groups all over the world, are stealing kids and killing your pets and yada, yada, yada. And when you get out of that, you would think that you would leave a lot of that behind you, but you don't. I've seen met a lot of atheists who continue to perpetuate this idea that celebrating a holiday somehow props up supernatural beliefs. And I just don't see it that way. But if you think that's the case, or if you do have supernatural beliefs around holidays and you want to talk about it, that's something you think that exists, and you want to convince me, I want to hear it. You can call 585-526-8774. That's 585-LaMurph. Or you can make life easier on me when it comes to video editing and go to tiny.cc/callSG. Link is in the description. You can call online, again, toll free. And usually it's a whole lot easier to edit. There are less clicks in the call. If you listen back to episodes on the podcast, you'll hear that I remove clicks by hand through the entire podcast to make the listening experience better. So if you didn't know, check out our podcast. We're on every major podcast aggregator. You can go to Google Podcasts, you can go to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. Just search for Skeptic Generation, and we'll keep you company on the way to work or the way to the grocery store, whatever the case is. If you like what we do and you want to support us, consider going to patreon.com/Skeptic Generation, where you can get an ad-free version of that podcast, and an ad-free version of this live show. Again, that's patreon.com/Skeptic Generation. We want to make that worth it to you. And Yeah, thank you for your support. Now, with that said, I've seen this in the queue. It says Eric mischaracterized the Alex Jones lawsuit and was disrespectful to Alex. I would like to ask some clarifying questions. I am very interested in this. So let's start off by talking to Kendall in Georgia. Kendall, you're live. How's it going?
Eric.
Kendall, what's going on?
Well, I mean, just imagine that V is getting fucked by Alex Jones and that you're very jealous of that. I mean, she could get fucked.
Kendall. Hello? Kendall? Oh, Kendall got muted. Was that one of the mods? I'm gonna try unmuting him. Hey, Kendall, you there?
Buddy, why'd I get muted?
I don't know, but what the hell's wrong with you, dude? I'm here to listen and talk to you, and you're going to be an asshole about it? Do you want to talk? Do you want to talk to me, or do you want to be just gross? Right, okay, if you're going to talk about my partner like that, you're off, and you will be banned from ever calling the show again. It's fucking wrong, dude. So try again. Try again, or you're done. Don't make me do this. I try to be the nice guy. I try to be the guy that listens, but that was wrong. So do you have something important to say?
Right out of her area.
Yeah, you're done, Kendall. That's disappointing. You disappointed me, Kendall. What a piece of shit. Well, I was hoping that would have gone longer, but apparently not. Okay, let's move on. We are going to take our next caller who does want to talk about religious Halloween superstitions regarding the devil. It's Sajid, who I'm very interested in finding what they think about it. But before I do, we do have a lot of lines open. So if you want to talk to me, now's the time. 585-526-8774. That's 585-LaMurph. I would love to have this episode continue, but we do need some callers. So in the meantime, though, Sajid in Canada, you're live.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
You know what? My blood is up a little bit. What the hell was that? Yeah. Did you hear that?
Yeah, that was bad.
I understand wanting to hear the sound of your own voice. Like some people need that, you know, some people are that like small, but,
okay.
to not even have anything interesting or intellectually worthy of saying, but needing to be derogatory because you're too fucking stupid to have a cogent sentence. I think that's really sad, you know, yeah. But anyways, you wanted to talk about religious superstitions around Halloween. What do you got?
Yeah, so obviously I'm a Muslim, but I've always liked Halloween. Even before I was a Muslim, it's one of my favorite holidays.
Okay. How did that interact with your religious beliefs? Was there any conflict there?
You're saying before I was a Muslim?
No, before you started kind of working your way out.
I'm sorry, I'm out of what?
No worries. You've been kind of expressing your different thoughts about a bunch of different religious topics. I know that you still consider yourself theist, but you're also not kind of beholden to a lot of different dogma. But that doesn't mean that you've always been this way. And so I know that when I was a Christian and I was when I believed, my Christianity really conflicted with, Halloween. In fact, there are different churches who would do something called trunk or treat. Have you heard of trunk or treat?
No.
No, kids want to trick or treat and they get really pissed at their parents because they're not allowed to. So instead they go to the church and all the parents put candy in their car trunks and the kids go from car to car in the parking lot of the church trick or treating so that they can do that without having to go out into the scary, scary world.
I never did that.
Right? No. I know a lot of Mormons do that. But even further along, there were people at my church who were just like, no, anything about Halloween is just Satan. You're going to get possessed. There's evil out there. And so that was my experience. And so my question for you is, as a Muslim, was there something like that for you?
Well, I wasn't raised Muslim, so that was never really a thing.
Okay. Was there do you get my question? Is that a thing or no?
For like Muslims?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Part of the reason I called in today was there was a Muslim YouTuber, also called Sajid, actually, with 2 A's, not 1 A, and he was just talking about how Halloween was inviting in the shaitan, and I was really kind of frustrated by that.
Okay, so that sounds very, very similar. So as somebody who's kind of reevaluating their beliefs, what do you think about it now?
Honestly, I think there's a lot of superstition. I mean, I still believe in Satan. I just don't think we need to be overly fearful of him all the time and be worried about him or demons or trying to possess us. I mean, like I'm doing some decorating this year, like last minute decorating, and most of the stuff I'm putting up isn't all that scary or demonic or whatever.
Sure.
I've never really been to the scary part of Halloween. I like the candy and I like dressing up and I like that kind of stuff. So it's kind of annoying when people just write it off altogether.
It really is. It really is. And what's funny is, yeah, so you believe that there's a devil. I obviously don't. And yet we're talking about this celebrating in a secular way, right? Secular just meaning not religious, right? Because that's all secular is. Secular just means not expressly religious. And I think it's interesting that, so many people view secular as against religion, but really it's just a common ground for us to meet. The fact that you like that, I think is awesome. I have to ask though, in your worldview, where does a devil exist? Where does a Satan exist? Like, how does that fit into your understanding of the world around you? Because for me, that's not the case, and so I'm curious.
Right. Yeah, this wasn't the way I was expecting it to go, but it's okay.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the supernatural and people believe in, stuff like that, like that's my jams. That like I got a show because I want to talk to people about it.
No, that's fair. No, I believe Satan caused evil, is the source of evil, but he's not something that is gonna. People are a bit satanophobic, I think, sometimes.
Satanophobic. That is an interesting word. I like that. Well, can we get into that just a little bit more? So you think that Satan is the source of evil. So first off, it sounds like you're thinking of evil the same way I'm thinking of like water going through pipes to my house. The source of that water being the water plant near my house, or electricity. Like if I cut off the source, then there would be no more water. Is that what you believe of Satan? Like Satan is a power plant for evil?
No, I think he's more like he's what brought evil into the world, I believe, or the universe.
Okay. Okay. Is evil a tangible thing?
Evil is tangible. I think there's manifestations of what we might call evil.
Well, yeah. So let me give you an example. Hunger.
Sure.
Right? I don't think the first person to ever become hungry brought hunger into the world. But every time somebody becomes hungry, that's a manifestation of hunger. If I killed the first person who ever became hungry, I wouldn't destroy hunger. But I also wouldn't treat it like the way that it sounds like you're treating it. And so I'm trying to figure out how evil is different from hunger, because it sounds like evil has properties that hunger doesn't.
Maybe evil is not the right word. Maybe more like suffering is better.
Well, yeah. I don't think we need to reach to the supernatural to find the source of suffering. Aren't humans good enough when it comes to suffering?
I'm talking about like not just human, but like natural suffering, what you see in nature.
Like what?
Like some, like, you know, the caterpillars that lay their eggs, or wasps that lay their eggs in caterpillars, and just all the predatory nature and all that, or predatory parts of nature.
Interesting. Okay. So do you think does this move into like a veganism argument? Like are all
that way?
Yeah, like are all meat eaters evil, or is a world without suffering one where there's no meat eating? It's
possible, I guess. I've never really thought about it going down that way, but
yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. I think that suffering is it sucks, as hunger sucks, but it is just a feeling. It is your body or a body reacting to a stimulus that is causing, a kind of a basket full of things that are going on in your brain. Things like possibly despair or pain or hopelessness, all of that kind of stuff. And it gets wrapped up in this word called suffering. And so I don't think suffering necessarily is something, whole in and of itself. It's just the name we call that basket of things. And so again, the reason I'm kind of fleshing this out is because the more we do, the more the word suffering, or evil or sin, those words just kind of become more and more nebulous. The more we try and pin it down, the more we talk about it. Would you agree?
Yes and no. I mean, I think we need a philosophical, if I believe in a God who's loving, then I need a philosophical reason for why there's quote unquote bad things in the world.
Hey, Sajid, let me ask you for a favor. I want to continue this conversation, but it sounds like your connection is having issues. There's a lot of clicking and I'm having trouble hearing you. And that means that probably people who are watching are having trouble. I'm gonna let you go. If you could call back and let's see if that can get worked out with our call screener. And if not, maybe we can try again next week. But I'd love to pick this up when the line is a little more solid, because I'm kind of losing several of your words, and that would really, really suck for me not to understand what you're saying.
Okay, how long has that been going for?
I don't know, about a minute or two.
Okay, I'll hang up.
All right. That's why, I think that the line might just be degrading.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Okay.
I hope that works out. I feel like we were getting into some good meat there, and I'd love to talk to Sajid about it. Okay. Jim wants to talk about how holidays are shoved down our throats. Ooh, okay. Let's go with this. Jim in Ohio, you're live with Eric.
Hi.
Hey.
I called last week. I don't know if you remember, but I was the one who pretty much said Alex Jones deserved hell. Like that.
Oh, well, yeah.
After hearing myself say that on the line and hearing the other feedback, I think maybe I was harsh, and I'd like to backtrack on a little bit.
I've been kind of doing the same thing. I'm looking at it and I realize that like Schadenfreude, the whole, taking pleasure at other people's pain is definitely a thing, and I'm human and I see it, but that doesn't mean that's what I want for the world. So I think that's really big of you to say. Cheers. I'm kind of on that journey too, so you're not alone.
I think it's like we hear about some authors when they're working on a novel, Although talk out the dialogue the characters are doing to see how it actually sounds, like if it fits the character or things like that. So hearing myself on radio and other remarks, yeah, I kind of backtrack.
Yeah. Well, cheers. You are human. You're absolutely allowed to change your views and grow from there. I'm glad you're doing it. Okay, but what about holidays getting shoved down our throats? What's going on?
Holidays.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have much problem with other holidays, Halloween, Easter, even though some we listen to.
Okay.
I used to be like that, hard on it, Christmas, humbug, and like that. But my real issue with Christmas is you can't get away from it. In
the United States?
At least here. I don't know about other countries. But they even have, like, NORAD tracking his movement. He's now going into England. He just left France. And it's just, and letters to Santa. I think that even people who are really into Christmas, they love this time of year. Can't wait for it to come. Even they have to have some limits for everywhere they go. Television stations, radio stations, Le Mans, 24/7, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the little drummer boy.
Yeah.
Just give us 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, fair.
This is the thing that's too much. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Fair. I think that it is a symptom of living in a capitalist society. When you go out, if you're, not at a park, most of the time you're around people who want to sell you something. And they get more business if they're selling seasonal things that people want. And so if business goes up when they absolutely go Christmas crazy, then they're going to do it. Like, I don't blame them for it. I understand, getting kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. I don't feel like I would be justified in telling them to stop. I just,
not that far. But like I said, just give us 5 minutes. Now they even have Christmas in July.
Okay. Jim, I got to be perfectly honest with you.
Yep.
I love all that shit. I really do. I know. I'm the problem, Jim. I am the problem.
No, I agree. like I said, I used to be with the hardcore atheists, do away with Christmas. But right now, I can take it. It's just this overkill.
Yeah. No, I agree. It can be.
There was one author, an atheist author, I think he's the one, Tom Flynn, who wrote The Trouble with Christmas, that religious people say, ex-atheists, what's your problem? It's like we throw this great party, and you're invited to come along, enjoy it. And the other one responds, no, we're not being invited to the party. You're dragging us to the party, kicking and screaming.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just think that we're going to need to do a whole lot more on a whole lot of other levels before we start to see changes like that. And I think that maybe we just change what Christmas means a bit at a time,
Like they say, too much of a good thing. Everything has a limit.
Fair. I'm just going to disagree with you on the limit. That's all.
Okay. One quick question, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Do you have a snail mail address?
We do.
And Skeptic Generation?
Skeptic Generation has a P.O. box, and I don't have it on me. I'm awful for that. But let me try and find it, and after the show, like maybe tonight or tomorrow, check the comments or check the description for this video, and I'll try and update it with the description. Or update it with the... Go ahead.
I checked the About section of your YouTube channel, and there wasn't anything there, and drop down description, so... I just have some things I think you might find interesting or amusing.
That's really nice of you. Yeah, we do have a P.O. box. I'll try and get that to you.
There's a card set called, I collect non-sports cards, and there's a set called Perverted Creeds.
Jim, I appreciate it, but I got to move on to the next call.
I know, I understand. Have a good day.
You too. Jim's a sweet guy. But just the format of the show, right? People are watching these conversations, and so I can't get personal like that. I got to try and keep it something that everybody can engage with. Okay, so it looks like we got Sajid again, and I really, really want to pick this up. So Sajid, you're live again. Hey, hey.
Hey, can you hear me better?
Oh, so much better. Okay.
Yes.
I lost the thread. Where were we?
We were talking about suffering, and then we were talking about sources of suffering, and then I was
Okay.
just talking about, you were saying how it's just a label you put on something or something like that.
Yeah, that suffering is just kind of a basket of things that you put in. So all of the different pieces that kind of go into suffering kind of make suffering itself nebulous. And it's not something that I would treat as an individual thing, but a collection.
Yeah, and I was talking about how if I believe in a God of love and goodness, then I need to have an explanation for why there's suffering and quote unquote bad in the universe.
If you want to go down that path, we can. I know that that's ground that we've tread before, but do you want to talk about that? If not, I can actually take us in a different direction.
Sorry, is it ground we've covered before? I don't remember.
I might be misremembering. Why don't we? Why don't we?
Okay.
So for people who are watching, this is the problem of suffering. It's something that atheists have been talking about for a very, very long time, and a lot of religious scholars have tried to answer is if there's an all-loving, all-powerful, all-knowing God who sees people suffering and can stop them from suffering, then either A, that God is not all-powerful, they're impotent because they can't stop the suffering, B, they're not all loving because if they're watching the suffering and can change it and don't do anything about it, then that's not all loving. In fact, most of us are more loving than that. Or C, that that God is not all knowing, that maybe there could be a God who's got all the empathy in the world and all the power in the world, but has no idea what's going on, which would very much challenge people's conception of what that God is. And so you've got that problem of suffering. And now that I've kind of tried to wrap a bow on it for the people watching, how do you answer that?
Well, I believe that God gave Satan free will to choose, and Satan chose evil, and that's why there's evil in the world. Okay.
Does that answer the statement though?
I guess it doesn't answer why God would give Satan free will.
Well, and I mean, let's say all of that is true. Does that mean that God is still all powerful, all loving, and all knowing if people are still suffering? Like that's like saying, Eric, why did you burn your hand? Oh, well, I stuck my hand in the oven. Okay. But it doesn't answer it. Like, okay, so that's your description of how. We could talk about that if we want, but like, let's just run with it. Let's say there is a Satan, and let's say there's a God that can grant free will. Now there's evil in the world. Is that God powerless to stop it? If that's the case, then I would say that God's pretty impotent, wouldn't you?
Oh, so yeah.
So, do you think that a being that can't stop suffering, would that still be a God worth worshiping?
I don't know about he can't stop suffering. I think he chooses not to.
Ah, then is that God loving?
I believe he is. I mean, I know the world's not always going to be this way. There's going to be justice in the end. So.
Yeah, but I mean, let's say, Sajid, I hate doing this, but I don't know if you have kids, but let's just pretend that you do. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so if I took your child and started beating them with a belt and said, it's okay, I'm giving them ice cream afterward, would that be okay? Would it justify or make it okay that I beat them with a belt?
No.
Okay, so...
I don't know if that's a good analogy, though.
Why?
God isn't beating people. He's he's allowing suffering, but he's not purposely meting it out.
Okay, so then let's make you God in this example, right? I'm in a room and I'm beating your child with a belt, and you can stop me, but you don't. What does that say about you? I mean, we're all going to go for ice cream afterwards, so that makes it okay, right?
I guess not.
In fact, I would say that because that's the case, then you actually are a more moral, loving person than this God character. Because you would actually step in. So either that God has the power to and doesn't, which kind of makes him one of the biggest assholes you could possibly imagine, or that God is just not powerful and can't.
Yeah, I know some theists don't go there. There's people who go there, some Christian theists who go there.
Yeah.
I honestly don't fully know the answer. I mean, honestly,
it's kind of brain breaking, isn't it? It's really, really upsetting. In fact, for me, and by the way, I want to take this as a moment to kind of point this out for a lot of people who are watching. So for me, when I came across something like this that I had trouble with, I would think about it and then I would drop it out of my brain and I would come back to it as if I had never been told it in the first place. I needed to encounter those ideas over and over again until it really started to stick, because I was not willing to listen. And even if I was willing to listen, I wasn't really internalizing it. I wasn't understanding it. And it took multiple tries. And because that happened with me, and I see that happen with other people, for those of you who are watching and going, oh, for all of the callers who call about the same thing over and over again, yeah, it doesn't mean that they're dishonest, but it does mean that they're reapproaching the same idea until it kind of sticks. And that's true for a lot of us, and it was true for me.
I do struggle with the idea of all the suffering and how God could allow it.
Yeah. No,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Because I've experienced, I think I mentioned this before, but I've experienced several times what I believe to be the overwhelming loving presence of God, and so that kind of keeps me in the theist camp, you know?
Yeah. Oh, no, I get it. In fact, I know a lot of people who've kind of left the theist camp, who've become atheists because they were at a concert and they had the exact same feeling. And they realized that it was something that can happen without the religiosity. In fact, there are a lot of people who leave religion, become atheists, but take part in ritual, or they get involved with something like a secular humanist, church or a something like that, because through ritual and music and that kind of stuff, they're able to have that feeling still. So I think,
yeah, I know.
If that, go ahead.
Since becoming a Muslim, I feel like I've had them more intense, more real than I've ever had in my life before. I don't know.
No, I get it. I know that it probably feels, look, Sajid, I don't want to be infantilizing, and I don't want, I get it in that I've had similar experiences, I think. But I can tell you in my experience, those kinds of things that I held on to, I didn't hold on to as tightly originally. But I wound up holding on to them tighter and tighter as I started losing my faith, because I didn't have much else. And it was really, really upsetting for me. And if that's something that you go through, you're not alone. And if it's not something you go through, that's totally fine. But I don't know. I think the idea of more real than real, I think if you think about it long enough, it's gonna lose all sense.
Sorry, what were you referring to?
No worries. You said you had experiences, religious experiences that felt more real than anything else, right?
Than I've ever had
Then you
any other experience that I've had. Yeah.
okay. So how can we tell whether or not something is more or less real? Like,
maybe more intense is a better word.
okay, so like, if I you know what magic mushrooms are, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so let's say you and I got some magic mushrooms and we sat down and we decided we're going to trip balls this afternoon. And
Okay.
you have an incredible experience. I'm not going to deny that that is what you experienced because that's what was going on in your brain. But I can say it actually wasn't, supernatural in any way. You didn't have powers or the world wasn't warping around you. It was just your brain experiencing that on magic mushrooms. And so, again, like, I'm not going to deny your experience, but I think that that can absolutely happen without it backing up a supernatural claim.
Yeah, I mean, in another call we talked about subjective, objective experiences, and I think it's hard. It's hard to kind of a lot of our experiences is very subjective. It's hard to go beyond that to something we all agree on.
So let's say you have this intense feeling that you call the love of God, right? Would it be less special if it turned out that it was not a God, but it was just an experience that had happened because your brain decided to dump a whole bunch of feel-good chemicals?
I mean, it sounds a lot less romantic is not the right word.
No, actually, romantic I think is a great word. So it's funny. I
mean, I actually used to think that way quite a bit. That I was actually an atheist for quite a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to go down the chemical reactions, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. But I've changed my perspective on that.
I had a loved one who believed in astrology. And one day I was just like, that's all bullshit, right? And they're like, what? And so I showed them what Barnum statements were and this and that. And they started crying. And they're just like, Eric, it's not that you're wrong. It just feels like you killed my puppy. I was really attached to this. I really enjoyed this. And it feels like you took something away from me. Kind of killing the romance of the thing. I totally get it. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't. I think I should have gotten that person's consent. But what I'm saying is, if my goal is to keep the romance of a thing alive more than knowing whether or not it's true, you got to know that that's the decision that you're making at least. Like, if you're making a choice, then at least recognize that you're making that choice.
Yeah, I don't know. I just when I had that more naturalistic, materialist view of things, it felt like something was missing.
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think that that's part of being a human. Honestly, I think that if you look at it kind of from an evolutionary perspective, the human that has a little bit of anxiety is constantly working. A little bit afraid is constantly on guard and is more likely to survive. I think that that's part of why we're consumers. That's just part of how we are. That anxiety, that want, or that feeling like you don't have everything often is enough to push us to do more, grow more, or be more successful, safe, secure, strong, whatever the case is. I think that's a feature. I think that's just what the case is. But I think that we're moving into this argument of a God-shaped hole, because that's something that I was told in church. People have a God-shaped hole in their hearts that it doesn't get filled until they become believers.
Yeah, and I would never say that for anyone else. I'm just talking for myself.
Sure. No,
I would never assume that other people need to follow the same belief I do.
Oh, Sajid, I just want to hug you. I wish everyone was like you. But let's in that regard. But let's kind of go from there. what if it wasn't religion that you needed, but community, a sense of belonging, something to be a part of, something to be involved in? There are a lot of people who can actually meet those needs and do meet those needs in a secular way.
Yeah, I mean, I visited. I was part of a secular group. I went to an event, but I don't know.
Well, I actually, it seems like you can't have both. Either that need can be met in a secular way, or there's a need for that religion, right? Like for you, you said that there was something missing. Do you think you could have filled it in a secular way, or do you think it was a God-shaped hole?
I mean, I just feel more at peace and more content in my life when I believe there's a God.
Totally understood. But I just kind of want to pin down the question there. Do you think that you could serve that need in a non-religious way, or do you think you need that religion?
I mean, I've had a lot. I mean, I feel like I don't always belong in Islam, but like, actually, I was in my city. It was near there's a mosque I was gonna go visit, but then I just got too anxious and I didn't actually go in. But I hung out at this welcome center for mental health people, and that was really encouraging.
Good. I feel like I'm losing the thread though. How does that tie back?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. How does that tie back to the question though?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. No worries. So you were saying that you had a need, right? There was this kind of emptiness that when you were not religious, when you were an atheist, that you felt like there was this something that was missing. Is that a correct assumption or assessment? Sajid?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Okay. And as a Muslim, you no longer feel that's the case.
I mean, I still wish I had a community.
Sure. So is that need still not met?
I mean, I still want to belong somewhere, but I feel like I feel like my life is more worth living, I guess.
No, that is actually, my gosh, you just bare your soul like every time. I appreciate you. Here's the thing that worries me. I totally understand the idea of life may not feeling like it's worth living if there's no God or no religion. That's pretty common for a lot of people who are told their whole lives that if there's no God, then life's not worth living, or the only reason to live is for that God. And so it kind of makes sense that you would, if you lose the God belief, then all of a sudden you lose all that purpose. But I feel like it's breaking your leg to sell you a crutch. It's telling you you're sick to sell you a cure. I feel like since I don't believe, all of those people who are saying that life is worth living for them because of their religion, they're just giving themselves something to live for. And they're calling it whatever. They're calling it religion. They're calling it, their God doing it. But I think they're doing it to themselves. They are giving themselves purpose, and they're happy by achieving that purpose. They're growing. They feel like, hey, I'm setting out this thing. Here's the value of my life. And they're moving forward with it, and they're getting all of this value out of it. But when they're ascribing it to the religion and not to themselves, I feel like they're tied to something for not a good reason. Because then you lose the ability to see how amazing it is that you're the one giving yourself purpose,
It's true. I mean, I think
like look at the people who have you heard me bitch about Alcoholics Anonymous yet?
No, but I know where you're coming from.
Right? The idea that, oh, you need a power bigger than yourself or else there's no way that you can quit.
No, yeah, that's ridiculous.
But it is selling people on this idea, you know, that they are powerless, that they couldn't possibly do it themselves. And even if people do quit, which I'm not going to get into on this episode, I feel like it disempowers those people. It makes them convinced that they are not strong enough. And I think that they are. And that's the same when it comes to life being worth living. I think you are strong enough. I think you are empowered to live your life and set those goals for yourself. And because I don't think a God is giving it to you regardless. Even if you think that there's a religion that's doing that, I think you're still doing it. I mean, that's just me being honest as an atheist. Right? So I'm trying to point out to you that while that may not be the case, while you might think that religion is what's giving you a life worth living, I think you're able to do that, and I think you are doing that. I feel like I blundered all over the place, but I hope I made a good point.
Yeah, I'm always happy to call, and you always give me lots to think about.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I always enjoy talking to you, and I would be interested in kind of what you think after you kind of stew on this for a little while, because the whole life being worth living thing, there's the whole whether a God exists, and then there's a whole other thing about, you know, purpose and I think that not enough people have the conversation around purpose. And it's important because that's where our hearts are. So yeah. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, I know we've had a long conversation. I just want to say one more thing.
Yeah, what's up?
First of all, I joined your Discord and I had a wonderful conversation with one of the mods there.
Hey, awesome.
And that was really nice. It was a conversation, and also I wish you the best in the recovery, and yeah, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. I hope you enjoy it. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. All right, y'all. You saw it. Sajid considers himself Muslim, and we had a lot in common. And I don't know. I think it's important to find those common ground pieces because that's where we grow. I think that we would not have had that if it was in an adversarial format. So I'm glad that this show gets to do that. I'm glad that I get to be here to do it. Let's move on and talk to... Ooh, we have a lot of people wanting to talk about Halloween, which is awesome. Let's see. Oh, this one is going to challenge me, so I need to take it because it makes me uncomfortable. Austin, I don't have a lower third typed out for you yet. I'll do that right now, but it says you'd like to discuss the role of nonviolent versus violent resistance related to the matter of human rights with regard to LGBTQIA community. Austin, you're here to make me sweat. How's it going?
It's been a challenging week, but I'm just happy to get to talk to you guys. I've been not talking, this is my first time calling. But I've been listening to you guys for a few years now, both you and V, and you've really helped me parse out my own opinions on some issues, and I'd just love to get your perspective.
Oh, good. Well, I'm going to warn you, I may disappoint you today, but I'm going to do my best.
I want to hear what you. Yeah, I know. I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, what do you got?
So.
Ooh,
I think it was.
Sorry, I didn't.
I think it was.
I didn't have your name in there.
No.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm Austin.
Yeah, I got you. Apologize.
No, all good. And I think this kind of it's kind of one of those things that's simmering in the back of my mind for a while. But I think that it was ironically enough, the attack on Paul Pelosi that really got me thinking.
I know, right?
Yeah.
For people who
And
don't know,
Go ahead.
somebody broke into the house of Nancy and Paul Pelosi, who are politicians here in the Nancy Pelosi here in the United States, and bashed Paul's head with what was it? A wrench? A hammer?
I think it was a hammer. He was
Jesus.
looking for Nancy, he said.
Yeah. Okay. So this is in the context of political violence that we're seeing.
Yeah. And I know that, around the country, we've seen a lot of, political violence, for lack of a better term, towards, the trans community, the larger LGBTQIA community at large. I used to be a Christian myself. I saw it firsthand, not in a physical sense, but how those people talk about members of the LGBTQIA community, of which I am a member.
As am I.
And I think, yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I love to hear from you. But as somebody who, not to say that I'm seeing the writing on the tea leaves, but I feel like, yeah, I know that there will come a day where violence towards people like us may come, and I've always considered myself a staunch nonviolent proponent. In high school and later in college, the words of Gandhi really spoke to me.
Sure.
Other people who pursued a nonviolent path, and I think that's where I'm really struggling, because I'm seeing people hurt and harmed, and I'm wondering, I don't know, I think at what point is violence even considerable to protect our way, not protect our way of life, but protect our right to exist.
Yeah. So that is a really, really, really tough question. And I think, number one, this clip is definitely getting demonetized.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's important to talk about. And number two, you're going to get a million different answers from a million different people. But I'll give you my outlook on it, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think violence is what happens when there are no options left. When a people are oppressed and there is no other solution, that's when you see violence. Violence is a symptom of a problem that has not been and won't be fixed. Does that make it okay? I don't want to live in a world where there's violence, so I don't advocate it. But at the same time, when I see it happening and it's for causes like, I don't know, the right not to get killed by a fucking police officer, I get it. I get it. And I can't even condemn it. Like, I really don't know. It's something that makes me sit and feel very uncomfortable, because at one point, I was raised in a community where I had teachers who actually were there when Cesar Chavez was fighting for the rights of workers, specifically Mexicans and, migrant workers. And they talked a lot. I had teachers who talked a lot about nonviolent protest, who talked a lot about, what you can get done without resorting to violence. And so I sit there and I think, well, does maybe my best self, the best version I can think of myself as someone who's nonviolent. And then I talk to somebody who has absolutely been marginalized and experienced violence more than I have. And I can't fault them. I can't fault them. I honestly think that it's one of those things that is going to require all approaches. But I would urge people to not choose violence as the first response,
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
But I get it. I don't know how to parse that with my morality. I don't know how to parse that with my, optimistic view of the world, but I don't live in an optimistic world, and I don't live in a world where everybody wants to be like me. And so how much am I handicapping myself by refusing to do something that other people are willing to do to me, which is hurt me?
That's exactly where I'm coming from, I think.
Yeah. It's fucked.
Yeah, and not to derail the conversation too much, but I grew up watching things like Star Trek: The Next Generation and things like that in syndication, and watching the way that those characters kind of tried nonviolence always, and then there were times where they weren't able to do that, and I don't know. I think it really messed with me in a way. I still love those kinds of shows and things like that. But it's the idea of where, at what point do you look in yourself in the mirror and decide that, for lack of a better term, you're choosing violence? And I've been very lucky in my life to not have to experience violence to the level that so many others have. For a large part, I have a very loving family, very supportive community around me. But I'm seeing my friends and colleagues and people that I care about all over not having that same luxury. And it's kind of, having me think about, at what point is it time for me to defend those people? And I guess, I appreciate the way you framed it as having that last resort being violence, but it's difficult to kind of determine at what point you're at your last resort. You know what I mean? At what point are you at Papa Roach? At what point are you at Papa Roach time?
Oh God, I can't listen to any of those albums. They bring back old feels.
Yeah, they're something.
Yeah. Speaking of soundtrack to my depression, but I don't know. I don't know. I think that the best thing that I can do is listen and, be supportive. And I don't know. I would really be interested in reading in the comments what other people think, because for me, finding where I sit and being happy where I am in a way that I would advocate for other people, I haven't gotten there yet. And that's scary and it's confusing. But if I'm not honest about it with the platform that I have, then I don't want people to feel like they're the only ones,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's important to have this conversation. And I really, really hope that people in the comments will engage with this topic, because I'll be really excited to read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate everything you've said. I appreciate your kind of framing of the idea as something that you do when that does help me personally. I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I appreciate your words. I appreciate you and V each week, and I hope you guys both have a great recovery. And I can't wait to look forward to all the future things that you guys do.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you. And thank you for calling in.
Mm-hmm. You've helped me a lot. Thank you very much.
Yay. Take care. I don't know what I have to offer. I don't know if what I said was helpful or if it's just stating the issue. The pessimist in me definitely looks at that call and goes, Eric, you offered nothing of value. I really hope that there is something there. If anything, we talk about it. And I'm not saying that prescriptively. I'm not saying that when you have nothing left, you should become violent. I'm saying that when I see violence, I often contextualize that as the actions of people who have nothing left. And maybe that's me trying my best to be charitable, because I know that can't always be the case. But it definitely contextualizes the political violence that we saw, at the Pelosi house. Do we have somebody who feels like they have nothing left and so they are resorting to violence? And if that is the case, then what does that say about the discussion and the position that these people find themselves in, that they think that they are in this world where conspiracy has led to the deterioration of it's just, I cannot imagine somebody believing those kinds of conspiracy theories and being happy. I think it's got to be a pretty miserable existence. Anyway, let's move on before I get really... Oh, one other thing, by the way. We talked about LGBTQ. I just want to say to Mark Aponte in the live chat, who said, LGBTQ, I'm out. So long. Take care. Don't come back. If talking about LGBTQ issues is something that makes you squeamish and you hate it and you can't believe that those atheists are just talking about the liberal. No, I'm a human. I have empathy, and I'm also a member, and that's what it's my goddamn show. So if you don't like it, and V's show too, but I think I can speak for both of us on this. Bye. Go away. We don't want you. We don't need your patronage. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on and talk to... Why don't we go with Steven in Arizona? Steven, you're live. It says that you want to talk about a line for legislating religious holidays. What's going on?
And you're making me follow that. That whole LGBTQ. Okay, fine. I have thoughts, but I'll leave them to one side.
I know. Just it's okay. I said I was just gonna say I know. We just got to be mindful of the format to try and make it something that people can engage with. But I know, right? I know. But go ahead. So when it comes to religious holidays, what do you got?
Yeah. So I don't have a problem with anybody celebrating anything. As whether they believe in the supernatural side of it or not. I'm another atheist who loves Christmas. I'm all in when it comes to Christmas. But where the issue comes up for me is when we start to legislate holidays that give these as days off, that's biasing the public toward a particular religion. And that's what I think I have a problem with. And I was telling the screener earlier, in my high school, by the time I was a senior, we were also getting Jewish holidays off, in addition to the Catholic or Christian holidays, in addition to the federal holidays. And as students and, being hormonal and wanting the day off, I didn't care at the time.
Yeah.
But looking at it as an atheist adult and looking at it as a secularist, I don't feel like it's necessarily appropriate, and it gets messy. If you only allow people of a particular religion to take a particular day off, okay, but then they have to make up the work that they missed and so forth, and then you have the teachers to consider whether they're going to be in on those days, and it gets really messy.
Yeah,
it's a little bit easier in the workplace, but I feel like the line is that when you actually legislate and say, we're going to make Christmas Day a federal holiday, I don't think it should be necessarily, because that's prejudicing the public and putting one religion above others. There's no reason why you couldn't do that across the board. But, I've lived and worked in jurisdictions where you got Good Friday off, or you got a half day on Ash Wednesday, or you got Easter Monday off, which nobody even knows is a holiday most of the time. So it gets kind of bananas, but that was what I wanted to bring up.
Okay, so let's break this down just a little bit, okay? So let's start with secular holidays. In the United States, Thanksgiving is a federal holiday, but it's not tied to a specific religion.
The Catholics try to co-opt it, though.
But yes,
you're right.
But yeah, let's or maybe we can go for Memorial Day.
Okay.
Sure. So Memorial Day is another federal holiday that's not religious. So are you okay with those being federal holidays?
For the most part, yes. I mean, the problem we have with, Thanksgiving is another one I love. And full disclosure, I marched in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade when I was in high school. So that's big memory thing for me. And I love cooking for the holidays. And so Thanksgiving kicks it off. Memorial Day, on the other hand, has become Toyota-thon.
But hold on, that's kind of getting away from the ought. Let's kind of no, that's okay. I just want to make sure that we're trailing here. So those as secular holidays, are you against them in the same way that you're against Christmas being a federal holiday?
No, I think every country, every culture has things like that.
Okay. So
I'm okay with that.
So would you say that you would support any governments that want to legislate days off for the people follow? Like
that's where I'm saying no, I don't have a problem with that. But what I'm saying is, like I was telling the screener about Diwali. Okay, I had a lot of Indian coworkers, and so we would get Diwali off because they were all going to be out celebrating Diwali, and that's great. But where do you? I mean, that's one thing inside of a business that we did it for our population, and I get that. But in our system of government in this country, we're supposed to be non-biased toward the establishment of a specific religion.
Agreed.
So you can say on the one hand, there's going to be the majority of people are celebrating Christmas, but I don't think that's enough to make it a federal holiday. Just because, you like Flag Day, for example, and everybody wants to take Flag Day off,
right,
that doesn't make it a good enough reason. And particularly if you're putting religion behind it.
So here's my view on it, and this is going to sound like I'm getting off topic, but I promise I'm not.
Your show.
I'll try and be quick with this story, okay? So a couple of years back, I was working tech support for different nonprofits. I was kind of working the phone lines, and I was working from home. I had somebody call in who was Black, and her donation of like $80 just got lost. She could prove that she donated it, but it was just gone, right? And she responded, "Can I donate another $80?" She didn't even try to get credited for the first $80. And I bring up race for a reason. I'll get there. The next caller, the next person that I spoke to that day was white. And she had been shorted in the amount that she was credited for her donation by like 35 cents. And she was livid. She was yelling. She was on principle so upset that there was no consoling her. Now, I told my friend about this later that day, and he said, "Oh, Eric, what a Karen." That second caller, right? What a bitch. What a privileged bitch. And I thought about it, and I realized, I'm just really upset that first caller, that first person, doesn't have that privilege too. I want her to have that privilege. I'd rather all of them be that Karen to have that on principle, right? That the response to privilege isn't to remove privilege, it's to give that to everyone, And so when we see a privilege like a holiday, there's that one response of maybe we should just take away that privilege. But I think there's another response of recognizing that it's a privilege and making that privilege accessible to everyone. What if instead...
Well, I have a counter story for you.
Okay.
So I went to graduate school at the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And my flat, we were roommates from all over the world and represented Judaism, Christianity, Islam, everything you could think of, and everybody had all these holidays across December and into the first week of January. But the Dutch celebrate their Santa Claus holiday separately from Christmas. They do it on December 5th. So we all sat down and were like, we're going to be celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Ramadan, until January if we don't do something. So we agreed to have our celebration on December 5th and just do it that way as if all of them bundled in, and we weren't going to do anything specific for each individual holiday because there were too many. So that would be my midpoint, I think, of where I would want to go, is to say, I don't disagree with you. I feel like everybody should be allowed to celebrate what they celebrate. We give everybody that day off, but if you start to allow for every religion, you end up with, you're constantly at the office because, it's this one, and it's this one, and it's this, like Diwali is right now.
Stephen, I don't think I was understanding your point, but I think I am now. Can I try restating it back to you?
Sure.
Is the frustration that the holiday is being mandated on a specific day?
Partly.
Okay.
It's that it's Christmas.
Yeah.
But like we could give, like we did with President's Day back before you were born, we did Washington and Lincoln's birthday separately, and then somebody decided this was too much. So they just combined it into one and called it President's Day, and now nobody knows what it means. We could do something like that. Like the December holidays could be 2 days off, and that would cover Hanukkah and Christmas. And be done with it or something.
I would say that we just, as a society, need to give people the days off. If somebody's got a holiday, give them the fucking holiday. It doesn't mean you need to mandate that day for everybody, but let's say we just create, and I know that this is a largely American thing. There are a lot of other countries who figured this out. That is that if you've got the holiday, you get it off. It doesn't mean that you have to take out of your PTO. It doesn't mean that you have to take out of your vacation pay or your sick days. But if you celebrate a holiday, you get the day off. I think that's just decent, And
if I could just make, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What's up?
I was just going to say, if I could make one other quick comment. The fact that the Dutch do it this way, I mean, their Santa Claus holiday is bananas. I won't go into that. But the fact that it was over on December 5th, December was such a breath of fresh air because there was no gift giving. There were no more sales. You were not going crazy with all of that anymore because you were done. It was already disorienting because they don't have Thanksgiving. So suddenly it was that Thursday in November and was like, oh, today's Thanksgiving. I totally forgot about it because there was no advertising or build up to it. And Christmas ended up being very much the same way. We did the Sinterklaas thing on December 5th, and then suddenly it was just another day, another month. And there was the religious holiday that you celebrated if you wanted to. It was beautiful.
Cheers. The only thing that I would amend there, though, is that if we move the day, I think we're just kicking the can down the road. If we force everybody to celebrate their holidays or whatever their rituals are on a specific day, we're going to have problems. But if we just give them their day whenever they have it, okay, cool. It's funny because while we're talking, I'm trying to catch up on the live chat, and there's somebody who said, "Lazy commies of the world, unite." Right? And what a poignant thing to say. Because I feel like in the society that we're in, right? I'm in Texas, you're in Arizona, we're both in the United States. There's this idea that capitalism is more moral or more good, that not working makes you lazy, or that you need to, somehow feel bad or perform guilt or shame for valuing some things more than capitalism. I think valuing those opportunities to gather the people that you love and tell them that you love them, make lots of food, or give them gifts, or just, find those excuses to embrace those your community, your family, whatever that may look like. I feel like that is so much more valuable than whatever I would have made that day at work. I don't think that makes me lazy, though. I think that makes me someone who's got their priorities straight. I'm sorry, that wasn't something that you called about, but it's something that was going to sit on my mind the entire time that I think is important to bring up from the comments. Stephen, I think this was interesting, and I hope more people talk about it in the comments. I'd love to see what other people think on the topic, because your solution and my solution aren't the only ones, and I'd love to see that spread of ideas. I'll be interested to see what people say. Thank you for calling, and thank you for the topic.
Thank you. Have a great week.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, okay. So we have somebody who wants to call saying that there's cognitive dissonance in Alcoholics Anonymous' philosophy. John, I think we might agree so much that I don't know if there's a whole lot of meat on the bone for other people to engage with. I do have somebody who wants to talk a little bit about the meaning of Halloween. And since that is a time-sensitive one, we can't push that on. Let's talk to Sakura in New York. Sakura, you're live. Hi.
Hi, Eric.
Hello. Okay, so what's going on?
So I wanted to see mostly if people have had similar experiences with their evolution of Halloween the way I have.
Okay.
Like most people, I grew up Christian, and the story I tell people, at some point, Halloween actually traumatized me, because when I was in kindergarten, during Halloween, kids dressed up in costumes, and it was cute, and the school would have a little march. But because I was Christian, I was like, I can't do that. But they said, let's just draw a little kitty cat face on you. And my mother saw it when I got home, and she slapped me very hard. Oof. And it took me years to not associate Halloween in that sort of way.
Yeah.
And I did do a little bit of rebellious things when I was older. And as a teenager, I would put on a mask, or I would go to the store, get candy and everything. And of course, it wasn't until I was late teens, early college, where I was just like, I'm no longer religious. I'm going to celebrate this holiday. And there was no religious connection to me. It was just, kids are getting free candy. I want candy.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
So and now, of course, I do have a spiritual connection to it. But I just wanted to know if there were people out there who had a similar experience, so I don't feel alone.
Oh, geez. So let's use this as a kind of a touch point for people to share their stories in the comments, because I think that'll be better than just hearing me. I'll give you mine before we move on to the next caller. But for me,
sure.
So, okay, I'm going to date myself, but I think it's important for context. I was born in 1987. That puts me as a tween around Columbine, right? And there was this big push at the time back toward, fear around the satanic panic. And, the idea of backmasking, secret messages that are demonic and going to take over your mind in music and TV shows, and that there's this constant threat going after you. So that's the context around which I learned a lot about Halloween. And it's interesting because since my parents were divorced, there was the Halloween that was talked about when I was with the religious side of my family, which was this big evil thing. And then there was going trick-or-treating when I was visiting, when I was with my dad and other mom. And they were such dissonant things that I figured that there had to be Halloween that I know and then evil Halloween.
Yes.
And I was very against evil Halloween.
Yes.
Yeah, I was very against evil Halloween. Fuck that, right? There are monsters there. But like, candy's awesome.
Yes, that's exactly what I never thought, even as a child, I never thought Halloween was evil, because I was taught one thing in the church that, that's when the devil will come out and all of this. I said, well, Halloween can't be that evil if all these people are dressing up and they're getting candy from it.
Right.
I was a little confused as far as like what was the true meaning behind it. I just said, everybody's getting candy.
Yeah, the true meaning really confused. Oh, no, I got you. The
Yeah.
true meaning really confused the hell out of me because the first people to explain Halloween was, I think it was my second or third grade class. We got a sheet that talked about the origins of Halloween, and it went back to Irish and Celtic roots. And also, I'm half Mexican, and Dia de los Muertos. But those aren't related. At least I don't think they are. And trying to figure out how those were related, because they must be, was really, really confusing for me. It took me a long time to try and figure out, what the hell's going on until I realized that, no, everybody brings their own to it. And it just is whatever people want it to be, which, I don't know, kind of lost some of the specialness for me because I thought that it was this united thing. But in fact, maybe it's just a holiday for people to eat candy and, go to parties dressed up as a slutty cat. and that's okay.
I 100% agree. Actually,
Yeah.
it's funny you mention your roots because I'm Celtic on my mother's side.
Yeah.
Which is even more hilarious. And I will say, I did look at the chat. My mother did apologize as I got older. We did hash that out because I addressed her about it. And she said she was brainwashed by what she thought Halloween was all about. And that's what she carried into hers. But she's better now. We have a beautiful relationship, and we can talk about these things. So please don't call my mom horrible. I know in that moment she was, but she's not a horrible woman. She's a beautiful woman.
I appreciate that for people who may not have a mom like you, though, Sakura. We do got to contextualize, though, that often people perpetuate abuse when they are the victims of that abuse. They keep it going. And so recognizing that somebody may have been indoctrinated into thinking that that abuse is just how it's supposed to be, until they learn otherwise, you have to recognize that they're victims as well. It doesn't make it better, but it does provide context and hopefully a means to empathy, understanding, and maybe even forgiveness. My experience in a way mirrors yours. I'd be interested in what other people have to say and what their experiences were. And I don't know, just talking about holidays is fun, and I'll be interested to read people's stories. I'm glad that you called, though. I'm glad that we got to do this topical thing, because Halloween is a funny and really fun holiday for me. And I'm a little too old to dress like a slutty cat, so now I get to share war stories with other people.
All right, you're never too old to be a slutty cat. You should totally do it. I'm all for it.
Maybe on a year where I'm not healing from getting snipped.
Well, yeah, definitely. Heal first. That's important.
But thank you for calling.
Thank you so much, and I hope V feels better, and you take care of yourself as well.
You too.
Bye.
Take care. Oh my goodness. So I think I can probably hammer through this next call pretty quickly. John in Pennsylvania, you've been waiting on the line for a really, really long time. You're live. How's it going?
Hi, Eric.
Hey.
This is the first time calling. I love your show.
I appreciate it.
Just really quick. Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time, but just really quick. I like Halloween. I had the old-fashioned kind when I was way back in the dark ages. And I'm all for as many days off as possible for holidays.
Yeah.
Keep it going. But as far as cognitive dissonance with AA and Al-Anon, they posit very strictly that alcoholism is a illness as defined by medical science, but they propose a supernatural cure for it, which is always been like I spent some time in the rooms of Al-Anon, and so I always thought that was absolutely preposterous. You can't have it both ways. So either it's a moral failing and supernaturalism or whatever you're opposing is the answer, or it's not a science-based empirical disease, which is in the purview or under the magisterium of science and medicine.
Oh,
so I
no.
thought that was kind of bizarre. So I just want to say that always seemed like the most ridiculous thing in the world. And one other thing, I think the reason why it always kind of works for people is that has nothing to do with a god or whatever. It has to do with belonging to some place where they can actually disrupt your habit.
Yeah.
So if they disrupt your habit long enough, you're going to retread different habits, and that's how it kind of works. But any social group can do that for you.
Yeah.
You belong to a chess club, that might do it.
But so here's my pushback. Because I do have pushback. It's not me defending it, but it is some context, right? So if you have a superstitious worldview, right? If you have a magical worldview, there are people who do believe that miracles regularly happen and that people who pray get limbs grown back. And if you do believe that, then it would absolutely fit in your worldview that something supernatural, which is much more tangible and normal for you, could be a response to something. It would be their version of naturalism. It would be, within, like, it makes sense in the context of what they believe. I'm not saying it's true, but I'm not
sure.
But I don't think it's cognitive dissonance. I think it's
okay. It's just part of their framework.
Yeah, I think it's just a bad tool in their epistemic toolbox, what they're using to decipher the world. And by the way, I'm just going to leave you with this because I think it's going to be, I think it's important for a lot of people to understand. And it really sucks, but it is an interesting thought. Rational. The word rational. The way we define something as rational is if it makes sense, if it is cohesive with the way that you understand the world, right? If you're using your tools and your epistemic toolbox consistently, then you can say that it's rational, or that's the way most people talk about it, which means for them, if you use that definition, they're also rational in believing it.
Rational or a rationalization.
Right. And that's why I think we really got to be careful about when we use the word rational, because I think we don't understand that it doesn't hold as much water as we think. And if we're going to use rational as a way to filter out non-true things, we need to redefine rational in a way that cuts that out, because we don't have that. But anyway, I don't know. That's just a little.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for calling.
No. I completely agree. How can we just simply separate the fanciful from, the empirical? Anyway,
right there with you.
Well, thank you very much for taking my call, Eric. Great show. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
We had a really, really shitty caller at the beginning, and then just a ton of amazing, kind, thoughtful, thought-provoking people, just sweethearts. How lucky am I? I don't need to say that I'm blessed, because I'm lucky. I'm grateful to get to meet and talk to so many people and hopefully share these conversations with all of you. And I hope you see the same value in it that I do, because it is fantastic. I'm not going to forget to read the super chats today. Those super chats are really, really helping. We really, really appreciate it. So let's start with Amit Matthew, sent $10 in and says, wishing V a speedy recovery. I will pass that on to V. Thank you, Amit. Sean Isherwood sent £5 and says, about my old call, infinity is not a number, yes, but some numbers are infinite, just as finite is not a number. See hyperreal numbers. Well, it depends. There are different types of infinity, right? So you can have a number that has an infinite number of other numbers after the decimal, right? That can go on infinitely. But that's different than the concept of infinity when you're talking about counting from 1 all the way up and never stopping. it is a different kind of infinite. And I feel like if we're going to have conversations around infinite, we do need to be careful about the context of that infinite so that we're on the same page. I don't know where to go from there, but that could be a good conversation to have in the future, and we appreciate the super chat. Brian Zupke sent $10 and says, I hope V has a speedy recovery and a great job as always with the show. I really appreciate how you will own up to mistakes when you rarely make them. Oh, I make them all the time. And rethink your positions with new info. You know, honestly, I really, really wish that I had the skill to rethink those positions and come up with conclusions faster, because I think that'll make for better TV. But sitting in the uncomfortability of it and showing that you can be in an uncomfortable position and that's okay, I feel is really valuable. And I'm just some asshole on the internet. I don't need to be deified. I don't need to, you know, think I'm better than I am. And so I'm absolutely okay being that guy. And I hope more people follow suit, because no, you don't know everything. I don't know everything. But I'm really glad that you value it. I feel like that is the community. Those are the people that I want to support and hold up and show that it's a good skill to have. And I'm trying my best to have it. Kathy Leto. Kathy, long time no see. I hope you're doing well. For people who don't know Kathy, Kathy is an absolute sweetheart who was there for me during some really rough times in my life as a personal friend. And I'm happy to see you, Kathy. Sent $20 and says, hi, Eric and V. Hope V feels better soon. I'm doing my absolute best. I'm trying to make home-cooked meals and doing my best to take care of them. We are watching reruns of terrible shows and just doing our best to relax. And I know V is doing their absolute best to feel better. Thank you for your well wishes. And yeah, again, if you like what we do, please hit the like button, hit subscribe. Do that right now. Hit the thumbs up. It really, really helps. Also, share this out with your friends. If you like watching the show, but man, you can't commit to that time, totally get it. Check us out as a podcast. I do my absolute best to put out a wonderful version of the podcast. I actually, every episode, am running a separate audio recording in a very, very high definition that never goes through to YouTube, so that I have that local copy, and then I go in and I clean that as good as possible. So the version that you'll hear on the podcast is a better sounding version than you'll ever hear on a live show. And I'm really, really proud of that. That said, hey, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a safe holiday if you support it, or whenever you support those holidays. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, I'm glad we had this talk.